welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. This is an episode I get to do with my friend, Nina Mongendre, that I have a really cool meeting her story, actually. I'm going to read her bio first, and then I'll tell you about how we met and how the universe conspired in many different ways, actually, to get us to meet, but we finally did. So Nina was raised in Paris by an American mother and a French father, and she was exposed to philosophy, art, and beauty from an early age. She carried this interest into her studies at Brown University. Well, I guess I'm giving this away. Anyway, so we both went to Brown University, and her work at Sotheby's. We didn't meet at Brown, though. Her study of healing modalities started in her 20s with the death of her parents, and at that time she realized that her calling was to be of service to that beauty within us. She is grateful to all the guides along the way who have held space for her. So she is trained, and we're going to talk about this today, which I'm really excited about. She's trained in family constellations, inherited family trauma, and IFS, which is internal family systems. She's a certified HypnoConstellations practitioner, certified Neuro-Emotional coach with the Center for Emotional Education, certified Shamanic energy medicine practitioner, and you're going to have to pronounce this for me, Nina, Munay.
Munay is just some shamanic rites. It's part of
Munay practitioner, Four Winds Institute. Okay. She's also the author of the Inner Child and Beyond Oracle Deck and Guidebook, which she's going to share with us today, which is a companion to your healing journey. And she says, I still enjoy curating beautiful things. And she's the founder of Sage Moon, which is a really beautiful website. It's an online sustainable lifestyle store. And she teaches weekly yoga and meditation class at Salt House in New Jersey, I assume, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so Nina and I, it's so funny. You're one of these people in my life that it's like we had to meet at some point. I mean, you know, we were in so many different places together at the same time. And even though I didn't grow up in Paris, I also grew up in France, which is crazy. And then I went to yoga teacher training with her brother, not knowing that it was her brother, right? And we still haven't met yet. We've done 4 years of Brown together. Well, 3 years because you're a year older than me. And then I did yoga teacher training with your brother. Still didn't know you, but I found out a lot about you because I knew at that point your parents had just died because he was grieving that. And then I met you finally at the kids' tent at summer solstice, which was the annual Kundalini yoga gathering. So we were destined to meet, and I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. So let's get into it. All right. All right. Well, hello, Nina. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And I'm really excited to learn about what you have been up to because I've heard a little bit about it, but not a lot.
Yeah, so this journey that, you and I shared a big portion of that journey with trying to find the meaning of life, through Kundalini yoga, then that kind of blew up. I know you have many podcasts about that, separate story. But I've been on this search of like, how can I heal? How can I help others heal? How can I hold space? But in a non-dogmatic way. That's really, I think, my one takeaway from that Kundalini yoga journey is that there is no one way, and everybody has the answers. We just have to be a mirror and hold that safe space. And so that's what brought me to family constellation work. I was always fascinated by stories of my ancestors. I was always asking my parents, tell me about your mom, tell me about your dad. I unfortunately didn't get to spend that much time while they were alive with any of my grandparents, really. And so that yearning has been there for the years. And I realized in my shamanic work and the other work I was doing with people that a lot of what held me and them stuck is these wounds from childhood. That lack of acceptance of what happened with mom and dad, with the caregivers, whoever they might be. And so that's really what I'm passionate about offering today and helping to hold space for.
Did you meet, so is any of your family alive right now? Did everybody sort of just go?
So my brother he was just here. He left yesterday.
Right, of course, your brother.
He's in Hong Kong, but no, in terms of the generations before, no grandparents, no parents. So it's been quite a journey, right? Mother, I have 2 daughters, so it's been really hard. And we use the medicine that we need, right? So what has brought me to feel passionate about this is because I needed to mother myself. I had nobody to turn to in my parenting. Nothing to fall back into, and so yeah, that's our wounds become our greatest medicine, I feel.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So, and you've done like I was reading those trainings, like you've done so much schooling on all of this, which is really cool. I mean, um, what what do you think what was kind of the progression? Because you didn't start with the family constellations thing. That was something
That's
that
right.
you discovered
Yeah,
later on, right?
exactly. Yeah. So the discovering emotions. I was a robot for many years.
My favorite topic.
You grew up in France for many years, and I maybe you have the same experience that in France, the way at least I perceived it and my own personality was that it's not great to like have exuberant emotions, and
Yeah.
that wasn't my nature anyway. Like I'm a Capricorn, I'm pretty introverted, so it wasn't my nature, and then it definitely wasn't encouraged by the society. And
Yeah.
so for me, showing emotions until I started realizing this work with the Center for Emotional Education and being coached for since my eldest daughter Alaya was 4, so it's been like 6 years almost,
Oh,
is
wow.
that I do have emotions. I can pretend I don't, but it actually really then gets built up, and I if I don't allow the joy, it you you don't feel alive. So that was my final realization is like, okay, I can't keep playing this game anymore. That I have to be a stoic and that humans shouldn't show emotions ever because that's just inherently not enjoyable, not healthy, and leads you nowhere. And so that was, I would say, like the huge momentum and piece of this journey of wanting to share this with people one on one was that
Yeah.
realization.
It's interesting. I think that different cultures have like different acceptable emotions. Like in France, it's very acceptable to be disgusted or
Yes.
like
Frustrated.
frustrated. Like that's kind of like a socially acceptable way of feeling. And in the United States, you're kind of pressured to be happy all the time, I feel like.
Yes.
Which is also, there's nothing wrong with being happy, but it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be that way all the time, right? So I think different cultures, depending on where you're raised, you have some unhealthy relationship with your emotions. It's just different, right?
Absolutely. And I feel France, this I left 22 years ago. And every time I go back I realize I've changed and it's obviously a generalization, right? But
Mm-hmm.
people
Yeah.
do express their emotions, like
Right.
there
Right.
is a part of Latin Mediterranean culture that is actually very tuned into that and not being afraid to like have outbursts of anger, which is healthy, right?
Yeah.
And like you said in the US we're often like everything's fine, everything's good, I'm happy, and that can be another way of just shoving them down and not honoring the
Yeah.
sadness, the pondering moments, the uncertainty. Like those are less acceptable here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just reflecting back on this, but it's actually a class I took at Brown about the Protestant ethic.
Oh,
I think that's
wow.
what it was called. But I feel like that's such a huge part of how, because if you are doing well, if you're
Mhm.
outward, if you look like you're doing well, God must love you. That was literally the message. And I think
Yes,
that we've all, even if we're not religious, I feel like we've kind of appropriated that, you know.
absolutely. We internalize that Protestant ethic for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
in this country, definitely. And then in the Catholic countries, a little bit more of the guilt and shame and don't show off your wealth, don't show off your happiness
Right.
because, right? So,
Right, right. Yeah. God
yeah.
likes the humble. Yeah, it's
Yes.
really,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, if you look like you're miserable, then you're really doing it right.
You're safe. Like it feels
Yeah.
safer, right? There's
Yeah.
something about that. And so that's taken me years and I'm still not there. I think that's the beauty of this is like just
Oh
we're
yeah.
never going to be there. We're just working on it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but it sounds like, are you still working with a coach?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just
No, me too.
we always need it. I think
Yeah.
that's part of the humility of being in this position of coaching others. I think we have to, right? We have to constantly, not const again, no, not constantly, because then we get into that spiritual should, I need to improve myself, which I'm completely against. You know, the more the years passed and the more I realized that's just a dead end street as well. But out of a place of self-nourishment and talking about our feelings and what's going on in our lives, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so okay, so you started with the emotions, and
Mhm.
then what led you to the family constellations?
So I went to a workshop with this wonder. She's French too, Marine Selene, and
Okay.
she was doing workshops in New York. And she's one of my mentors in this work. She really, it changed my life just stepping into that workshop. What I love about it is that, again, there is no guru. There is nobody to tell you, like, this is, we're going to remove this from your aura, or we're going to do this, or we're going to fix this. It's all about the feelings you have in your body. So my first constellation, she just, you don't know who's your mom and dad. You pick, so there's 15 people in the room. She tells you
Okay,
pick.
wait. Take me back because I don't
Okay,
understand the
so
language. When you say constellation, you mean class
let's
or
say it's a workshop.
okay.
You are exploring any topic. So you could come in with a topic, I feel stuck in my career, or I'm trying to find a partner. I feel stuck in my love life, or I'm really not in acceptance of my childhood, you know, with my dad or my mom, you know, abuse, whatever it might be, any
And
topic.
and everybody comes in with one and you do different ones or you're doing one for okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You do different ones. So you might not do 15 because that takes a lot of time, but let's say in a 3 hour workshop, you might do five, six
Okay.
constellations. So constellation, you can think of it like a vignette, a
Okay.
scene, showing us the unconscious energies of a dynamic. So if it's the dynamic between you, your career, and money, or you, your inner child, your mother, where is the inner child? You know, so, okay, so I'll just take it back to the workshop. So imagine you're in a room, it's your turn. I'll say, okay, pick 3 people. You told me, you know, what your intention is. So you pick 3 random people in the room that you don't know. You're gonna
Oh, okay.
You're gonna
Okay.
place them, right? So let's say there's 2 women and a man you picked. You're gonna take them by the hand, and you don't know what they represent. Bless you.
Muted myself. Go ahead.
You don't know what they represent, who they are yet, right? The facilitator knows. Let's say one of them is your mom, one of them is your inner child, one of them is your father. Simple constellation, but really powerful. You place them. Right there, we have information. The idea is that there's a field, like I really see it as a quantum field, right? When they take those 2 cells and they put them in different states and they do something to one cell and the other cell responds. It's based on morphogenic fields. It's how birds fly together. It's how eagles find their nest. It's how the turtles go back. You know, that there's an awareness and intelligence that's biological, right? That's innate. Nobody needs to initiate us into it. You, me, anyone can step into this. No prerequisites, nothing, no hierarchies. That's what I really like about it. So let's say you placed your mom here, your dad facing that way, your mom's face. So let's say they're facing back to back, and then you placed your inner child in the middle. The facilitator asks, "How do you feel?" to the mom. The representative knows nothing about your mom or your story,
Right,
anything.
right.
The representative says, well, I feel my legs are strong or my legs are weak. I feel nauseous. I feel happy. I feel distracted, whatever. Check in with feelings and sensations. Same thing with the dad, same thing with the inner child. Then it's like a whole thing, right? Process, right? That can take 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And the idea is to bring resolution. So it's for the child to be accepting the parents, to be supported by the parents. It's right. I can continue, but I just
Yeah, yeah. So is this kind of it sounds like it's spiritual but also maybe based in like psychotherapy because
yeah.
is
In
that
Europe,
kind of
it's very much part. It more so in Europe, in European
uh-huh.
countries. Here, it's starting. Bert Hellinger was German. He used to be actually a Catholic priest, and then he lived with the Zulu for many years, and he studied ancestral worship and dynamics. And then he went to study psychotherapy and Gestalt and many, many processes and Milton Erickson, like all that. And then he came up with this idea of like, we can access, there's no time and space. Like we can access how your great great grandmother felt and what her trauma was and bring resolution, bring acceptance. We can access an unspoken family secret and we can recognize it and give it a place. And then that like affects the whole lineage and brings a sense of like peace and groundedness. And
Can
so,
you give an example and like something that you've worked through in this, if you don't mind, just so that, because
yeah.
I'm not quite getting how what it looks like. I mean, I get what it looks like visually, but I'm not
Yes,
sure like.
absolutely. So an example of an actual constellation, right, in person?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like here's the issue that I came with, and here's what we
Yes.
realized about it, or
Yes.
here's what transpired.
Yeah. So I'll give you this is like the most recent one I did. It's more abstract. But it's very simple because it's just two representatives. So it was
Okay.
me and receiving, the
Okay.
energy of receiving, right? How I relate to receiving. And so the representative, the woman who I picked, not knowing what she was standing for, she was about like, let's say like 8 feet away. And initially I was like, didn't want to look at her. The facilitator was like, how do you feel? I'm like, I don't know. I don't trust her. Like, I want to look the other way. And she was like, I'm ready. She didn't know who she was, right? She's like, I'm ready for you. I
Oh,
feel
wait,
so.
okay, hold on. So the person doesn't know what they're working on?
No, I
Okay.
know what I'm the client. I know that I was like, I'm having trouble accepting or receiving. It's easier to, I knew it was receiving, but I didn't know if she placed my husband, if she placed my kids, if she placed receiving from the US, receiving from my
Okay.
career, money. Like it could have been anything. I didn't know that she just actually,
Okay, but so
decided.
you said to the group, this is what
Yes,
I'm working on. You picked her and she didn't know who she was playing in
exactly.
that. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I didn't know who she was specifically either. It could have been my mom, right? Receiving from it could have
Okay.
been the divine feminine or whatever.
Okay. Okay.
Life,
Okay. So
right?
in the process of this, you discover who this person is for
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you don't want the mind. So once the sensations are spoken and we clearly see the dynamic, then the facilitator, and it's their choice. It doesn't have to be blind. Like the facilitator could say, pick a representative for receiving, pick a representative for yourself.
Okay.
It, it's very open. It doesn't have these kind of rules.
Okay.
But yeah, and in the end, so there was like a 20-minute process. I couldn't really look. I couldn't trust. It's like, I don't know. You remind me of men. Like I was like, I thought she
Mm.
represented men. I was like, I don't like. I kind of want to step back against the wall. I'm not sure. It. And so in that process, it brings up a lot because you're in this. There's people witnessing you in this process, and it can be emotional. And then in the end, the resolution is that I took a step, and I asked her to take a step. I took another one, and it's slow. It's like you're really embodying this. It's not an intellectual experience. And then finally, I was like this close to her. I was breathing, looking at her, and then in the end, I was like, "Can I hug you?" And so we hugged, and I just tried to allow my body to feel what that was like to receive and to soften into that she was there for me, as that embodiment of
Mm.
receiving. And it shifted, like it shifts a lot. Every time I do a constellation, I feel very interesting shifts in my perception of myself, of my interaction with others. It's potent because you're in it, right? Which is
Hmm.
beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. And so by the end of it, you realized, oh, this person represents, or did somebody say it to
About
you,
halfway
or?
through, yeah, about
Okay.
halfway through, Maureen said she's receiving. Like
Mm.
she's embodying that energy,
Mm.
representing, and yeah.
So with the family aspect of it, I guess in this example, there wasn't like really a lineage type
No,
thing, but
yeah.
there is sometimes, it sounds like.
There is, and so for example, it's of course tied into lineage. Like my mother, my grandmother, they sacrificed,
Mm.
trouble receiving. Most women in our lineages, right? All of us, like very often. And so you could bring in at the end of that, like once we were connected and together, you could ask another person in the workshop to stand behind me to represent the women in my lineage and just to allow me to feel. And she did many times, we did that, like to allow me to feel that support. And I could even lean back, like have that person put their hands on my shoulders and just actually lean back into it and take some breaths, like allow a minute or two to pass to feel what is that like, right? To imagine all the women in your lineage receiving with you and trusting that now they can open up to that.
Wow. Are these groups mostly women, or are there some
No,
men
we've
that
had a
come? Or
few. Yeah, we've had
yeah,
a few men, and it's always amazing, when
yeah,
men come because we need that. We need
yeah.
the male energy as well. Yeah.
Does your husband participate in this?
He
Has he been
does,
there?
yeah. He
Yeah.
he does really love it. Like he's had some one-on-one work. He hasn't been to a group workshop because I'm
Okay.
always the one going usually, but he's had some interesting explorations. Yeah. Because you can do it
Cool.
one-on-one, right? So you can have a piece of paper. That's what I do in my sessions with shoes, pairs of shoes, or a piece of paper that I would say, okay, Porter, like place in your room, right on the bottom, these three things, shuffle them, and then place them in your space, stand on them, tell me how you feel on each one, what you
Ah,
notice.
wow, that's really interesting. That that I mean, in a sense, it's sort of like working with your guides, it seems like,
Yes.
but in like a more
Yeah.
concrete way that maybe is easier for some,
Mhm.
a lot of people probably to feel connected with. I would guess. I haven't done it, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, it absolutely is that. Because the HypnoConstellation is basically doing the same thing, but eyes closed, I guide you. Imagine your future self walking into this space. Imagine the block walking into
Mm,
the space. Imagine your mother walking into the space. And so that's all happening in the realm of your psyche. And yes,
yeah.
imagine a guide coming, a resource.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got the sense of it for sure. That's exactly what it is. It's tapping into our inner knowing in these different ways.
That's really cool. It's it's um it's interesting to me too, like, so I get so much out of the coaching that I receive. Um and because of like our history, because of the cult background and the avoidance of emotions and really like kind of self-hatred that propelled me
Yeah.
to want to be somebody different.
Mhm.
Um I I I thought all that we were doing was growth work. I thought we were, and I remember at the end of it, I was like, wow, I'm really kind of just where I started growth wise. I mean, it's kind of pathetic. Not, I have more life experience, but in terms of how I relate to myself, I'm kind of
Yeah.
at the same place. And so my partner was like, well, have you done the work? And I like, because he'd been in therapy for like 10 years or something. So I decided to seek out kind of a more traditional therapist.
Mhm.
And she was so sweet, but it was not helpful for me
I
at
know.
all. It was too, it was too like, for me personally, and I think we're all at different places and we need different kinds of help. But for me personally, it was like too focused on behaviors,
Mhm.
like try this, try saying it this way, and that doesn't help me because it doesn't get to the root of anything, right?
That's exactly right. And that's my number one thing is let's get to the root of this. And this is why I love inner child work. No matter what, like, all these names and whatever, certifications, like in the end, it's just about holding space with compassion, right? For another human being, nobody's better, nobody's whatever. It's just, are we doing our own work so that we can have compassion and shine the light, right? Like, let's look here together and really listening deeply so we can ask the right questions. And yes, what is the roots? Like, is it ancestral? Not always, right? Is it in childhood? Yeah, often. Is it past lives? I mean, there are many, many ways, right, of exploring, but I have found in my own journey, looking for the root has been the most impactful versus what you said. I've had very similar experiences. It's not helpful, like redirecting thoughts or behaviors. Like, yeah, but that behavior, if I have it, it was adaptive for a while. Like it served a purpose. Otherwise, I wouldn't have it. And so we need to go back to when it was created and to really have compassion and understand why it was created.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're hopefully coming to a point where, I mean, at least in our circles, right? Like people do value this sort of this
Mhm.
perspective, because I think that there's been an overemphasis for a long period of time on this kind of masculine concept of like, well, can we quantify it? You know, what research has shown that this is effective or whatever? And how do you even, I mean, you kind of have to take someone's word for it, because how do you quantify healing? It's a very feminine concept, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds really, really beautiful, this work. So when you're working with people, you're doing, it sounds like you're doing in a coaching capacity, but also in a hypnotherapist capacity.
Yeah, so it's really based, I allow what they need to guide me. Like I don't show up with an agenda. And so I have this basket of tools which come in if they're useful, only if they serve. And so for some people, we do first the ancestral work. We work with those shoes or footsteps. We look at relationship with mom and dad. That's usually how it goes. Like the first session is really, what is your worst fear? What might you be carrying for the lineage? We look at 3 generations on your mom's side and your father's side to try to bring, again, like just understanding and softness. If you're carrying some anxiety for a grandparent that was born in a concentration camp, let's hold space for that. Let's witness it. We can't redo the past, but we can witness and acknowledge what has been carried for very good reason, right? Those are
Mm-hmm.
difficult moments and experiences. And so through that witnessing process, and there, some statements that I invite people to say, like, I honor you, you have a place in my heart, grandfather. I see what you went through. That must have been difficult. These are called soul statements. They're just very simple truths that have to resonate for the client. So I always tell them, like, if it doesn't resonate, don't say it, right? Just tell me if it lands flat. But usually it really does unlock something in their body. Um, and so that's how it goes. And then if they're saying, well, I feel really blocked with this in my career, and I want to get to this vision of my life, then a guided, it's just like a gentle guided visualization, very gentle hypnosis, so that they can access the subconscious and see what comes up through placing those elements inside inside a place in nature that they imagine, right? Like as if
Mm-hmm.
you were in a workshop, but it's happening all in your own space.
When with the person who might have an ancestor who'd been in a concentration camp, is that something that was like told to them, or is this something that they're like feeling in the, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, because I don't even know what my great grandparents went
yeah.
through.
It can be both, which is why it's so beautiful. Like sometimes people have these. So Mark Wolin he wrote an amazing book about this, and I studied with him to do the one-on-one in the way he approaches it, which is I really, really love. He wrote a book called It Didn't Start With You, and he has many wonderful stories in there, and it's about inherited trauma. And I'll just tell you one because I feel it illustrates this like so beautifully. So he had a client come to him, a 19-year-old man who, when the day he turned 19, he started waking up in the middle of the night, like around 2 a.m., and just like shaking. I can't go back to sleep. I'm going to die. I can't go back to sleep. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. He went to see every specialist, right, for a year, nothing physiological. And then I guess he found his way to Mark for inherited trauma. They look at his lineage, starts asking questions like, did anybody die? Was anybody did anybody steal an inheritance when anybody cheated in a business deal? Oh, there's like a list of many, many questions. This boy found
And
out.
just, sorry,
Yeah,
this is being asked in hypnosis,
in
like
the
being
session. No, 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 no. It's
drawn,
a in a.
or
I
just like
send
what you
normal.
know
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
your
Tell me what you
ancestors.
know. Like I
Okay.
send you in the list before the first session, so that you can
Gotcha.
talk to relatives and prepare. And then
Okay. Gotcha.
I create the whole genogram, like the map with the three generations. And so as they're talking, it turns out that the boy did not notice. He did not know. The 19-year-old did not know that his uncle died at 19. So his dad's brother died at 19 years old. It was so painful, nobody spoke about it. His dad, like the
Oh,
mom, did not want the family to speak of it. It was kind of just, you know what, that happens often, right? Somebody dies, let's not mention it. So he didn't know what happened. Turns out, so he asks his father after that uncle died, he was repairing power lines in a blizzard on the Northeast,
oh,
and it was freezing. And he was left, I don't know what happened, maybe his truck, something. He was left in the blizzard, he was alone, and they found him frozen to death, but he had been pacing around like, I can't go to sleep, I can't go to sleep, I'm going to die.
ah,
The
ah,
second they acknowledged that, the boy never woke up again with that
oh,
fear.
wow.
And so, to answer your question, is both. Sometimes we know a story about a grandmother who died in childbirth, and we have a fear
Mhm.
of getting pregnant.
Yeah.
Or we might not know. And then we can, the good news is you can still release it. You just
Yeah.
acknowledge it. You give it a place. You say, like, I don't know who this happened to. I don't know who I'm carrying it for. But I offer it back to my lineage with respect. I hold you all with love. You can still find resolution.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
powerful. Huh. So have you had experiences similar to that where you haven't realized something about your lineage that was like greatly affecting you?
Yeah, I've had many moments, like not like something so crazy. This one is like, I think it's such a great story.
Yeah.
Mine, many just subtle, but like insidious things, that have been like really like creating blocks or been held and carried. Um, One, yeah, where I realized actually, and it doesn't have to be like a biological relative, which is interesting. Like, so with one where my grandmother was married before she married my grandfather and then had my
That's so
mom.
funny. I was just gonna ask you about that, Nina. That's so crazy. Because I was thinking my dad was adopted. I wonder if his mother would be considered part of my lineage. Okay.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Like his biological mother and then the people who raised him, both.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is the key with adoption is that we have to give a place. Even if
Yeah.
we don't know who they are, like it's very important, right, to acknowledge both. Yeah,
Okay.
I had
Sorry.
clients like
So
I had many clients in like Italian families who the grandmother was left at the church doorsteps. Like more than 3 or 4 clients I've had that story. Yeah.
wow.
So they have no idea who their parents are or anything about that side of the lineage.
Wow.
But anyway, so my grandmother was married to this man, Sterling, who was very successful, kind of the madman ad. He was like one of those first
His name was
80s.
literally Sterling,
Sterling
like
Getchell.
silver.
Sterling Getchell, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was very successful. There was a New York Times article about him. He created, I think, the Exxon Mobil, like that horse with the wings, like that logo. And he was at the
Oh,
prime, like, set for an amazing career. And he died, I think, at 41 or 42, very young, leaving his wife, my grandmother, with a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old boy. And my whole life, like, I always had this sense, like,
so
of
this was your mother, your father,
my
or
grandmother's husband, my grandmother's first husband.
but like were her child was the child
Her half
or
brother. No, no.
your
So
mom's half brother?
yeah, my mom's
Okay.
2 half brothers. Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
and basically just a lot of entanglement. Like, and there's entanglement is not positive or negative, but just I was carrying a lot of that pain for my grandmother
Mm,
of that loss, and like how she just felt completely like that shock of that loss and being left alone.
Mm.
Right, interesting because my mom wasn't even born then, but of course that was being carried in my grandmother's experience.
Mm.
She went on to have a second marriage and she had my mother and, more children, but it lived
Mm.
through my mom and got to me. And so I now I recognize him as part of like he's somebody I think of and I honor and that tragedy and that early loss and the fact that he couldn't finish what he had been here to do
Mm.
and how he must have felt, leaving like that powerlessness, leaving those two young children and his wife behind. And it was something that could have been cured with antibiotics today. He just had some sort of
Mm.
infection and he died, in his very, very early 40s.
Mm.
And often these things, so you might feel this at the age that you are. So let's say that person died in their 40s. When you turn 40, we have these like these clocks, right? Like in our family system that you start to feel things more intensely, just like that young man at 19. It started. There's the memory. There's some sort of cellular memory.
Wow. That also makes me think of like how much collective trauma we must carry as women for, I mean, because when you say left, I'm thinking like this is in what year? Like 19,
Oh yeah, when he
like
died, so it was like in the like 1938
30s.
around there,
Okay. Yeah.
1940.
Yeah. I mean, the the like the horror of losing your partner as a woman at husband at that time would be so much greater than now is because I mean there were women couldn't own property in some places or have a bank account or inherit anything. They were really really vulnerable. I mean it
Exactly.
wasn't just an emotional loss. Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah.
And you had to remarry. Like it was not a question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so all the emotions are on that, right? Like if that was the love of your life, it gets very complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. So what is the deck? Because we haven't gotten to that yet.
so the deck, combines all of this that I've been learning and working with people. It's called Inner Child and Beyond because it goes into ancestral healing and honoring mom and dad, our childhood, but also beyond that, like the fears, the blessings, because we're talking a lot about the trauma and the fears,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
we can call on our ancestors for support, right? For love. Like they never really leave us. And so that's what this so there's a guidebook, and each card has an invitation, a journey, some statements, those soul statements I was talking about. I give for each card a statement that you say to your inner child. So for example, I just opened it to the trust card and I invite people to like close their eyes, imagine their inner child, however they appear in that moment, whatever age. Like look at them and you can say out loud, little one, together we will trust life again.
Hmm.
And then there's a journey, like a visualization, and often taking you into the card because the artwork is just stunning. So that's the love card, the painting I have behind me. I'll show you a few of this is the boundary card.
Oh, that's beautiful. Who did these?
So her name is Edie. She's an artist. She lives near Woodstock, New York.
Oh,
This is
beautiful.
acceptance,
Wow.
shadow. So there is some shadow work also, and emotional healing. How do we stay present with what we're feeling? So it really incorporates all of that in each card. Bliss,
Oh, beautiful painting.
worry, yeah.
Are these like how does she do this? Is it done on like a
It's
tablet or is it like an
canvas.
actual
So they're all
a
original
canvas?
works of art. Yeah,
Oh
that
wow.
she's
So
done
they
over
can
many,
actually
many years.
they could be actually purchased as paintings as well.
Yeah, some of the originals, some she's sold because it's her art for,
Hmm.
long, long time she's been painting, but some are, yes,
Oh.
are available. This is the ancestor card.
Oh wow. That is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and you can work with the deck in many, many ways. Some people even work with it with their children. They have them pick a card. based to show how they're feeling. You can draw a card for guidance of what your inner child needs. I suggest a few ways in the booklet.
I
Let's say
love that.
desire.
My kids are really into that. I
Yeah.
showed them how to use a pendulum.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Those are really beautiful. So that's available on Sage Moon?
Yeah, it's available on Sage Moon. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that link in the podcast description notes for people so that
Right.
they can check that out. Is there anything else you want to say, or I'll ask you if there's anything else you want to say first, and then I'll ask you a different question.
No,
Anything
that's
we didn't
good
get
about
to?
that. Yeah. No, it's good.
Can you share with people how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. If they're interested in doing this work one-on-one, like if that piqued their interest, then my website, and you can put it in the link, it's my name, ninamongendre.com.
Yep.
That's for the one-on-one sessions. And then Sage Moon, if you're interested in conscious jewelry and clothing, it's not really for yoga, it's everyday clothing, just really fun cotton I work with like 10, 11, it evolves, but small designers. So small business owners who make their own beautiful items, and I curate the selection. So yeah.
So cool. Well, thank you, Nina. It was really lovely catching up with you and finding out what you've been doing. Yeah, thanks so much everyone for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast. Please remember to like, rate, subscribe, whatever your service offers you as a way to engage and let others know that you're enjoying it so it gets shared with more people. For all news updates on what I am doing, you can go to my website, portersinger.com, sign up for my mailing list, and get a free track as a thank you. All right, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.